It started with a silence that said more than words. As the camera moved slowly across the grand halls of Downton, the walls themselves seemed to know this was the end. Fans knew it too. This wasn't just another closing scene. It was a goodbye to a world we had all lived in for years. The Crawleys were not just characters. They were family. And now we were standing at the gates, watching them walk away one final time. Downton Abbey 3 picked up with everything in motion, Lady Mary holding tightly to the estate's future, Tom Branson finding love again, and Edith continuing her journey as a strong, independent woman. But from the very beginning of the film, there was something different in the air. There was joy, yes, but also a quiet sense of closure, like the sun was slowly setting over Yorkshire Dot as the story unfolded. Old faces returned. Mr. Carson, though slower now, brought back the dignity of the past. Daisy and Andy settled into their own rhythm of love and purpose. Mr. Molessley was finally getting recognition for his intelligence, and Thomas Barrow found a kind of peace few expected for him. And in the middle of it all stood Violet Crawley, the Dowager Countess Sharp, as ever, yet visibly fading. Her presence gave the movie a powerful center, one that would eventually break every heart. The film built toward celebration, a wedding, a family reunion, moments of joy that made fans smile. But behind the laughter was the soft drumbeat of goodbye. Lady Mary was more serious now, feeling the weight of leadership. Tom was looking ahead, not back. The younger generation was ready to carry the story forward, and the old guard seemed to know their time was passing. Through stunning visuals and gentle pacing, Downton Abbey 3 painted a picture of transition. And yet, it never rushed. Every character was given space. Every goodbye was earned. Every moment was soaked in memory. Whether it was a casual breakfast in the grand dining room or a quiet conversation in the garden, it all felt like we were watching history being folded away, one soft scene at a time. And as we moved closer to the end, one thing became clear. This wasn't just the end of a movie, it was the closing of a beloved chapter. What happened next, in that unforgettable final scene, would bring a wave of emotion fans still aren't done talking about. The final scene didn't begin with a grand speech or dramatic music. It began with a quiet moment, Lady Mary walking slowly through the halls of Downton, her heels tapping softly on the marble floor. The golden afternoon light poured through the tall windows, casting long shadows behind her. Every painting, every piece of furniture, every doorway seemed to carry a memory. She paused by the staircase, her hand brushing along the railing, the same one she had run down as a child. This was her home, her history. And now she knew everything was about to change. Downstairs, the staff gathered silently, their uniforms crisp but their eyes heavy with emotion. Mr. Carson stood, tall but his hands trembled. Mrs. Hughes glanced at him, holding his hand without a word. Thomas stood at the edge, his face more open than ever, no secrets left, just acceptance. Even Daisy, usually full of fire, seemed unusually still. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken goodbyes. Then came the final gathering in the drawing room. The family sat together, Mary, Edith, Tom, and all the children. The silence was broken only by the sound of the door opening one last time. Violet Crawley was brought in, wrapped in her favorite shawl. Her steps were slow, her eyes tired, but her smile was the same. Everyone stood. There was no fanfare. Just presence, respect, love. Violet looked at each face. She didn't need to say much. Just a few words that carried the weight of decades. The world changes. We must change with it, but some things are worth holding on to. Her voice cracked on the last line. That was the moment. The one that made thousands of fans wipe away tears across the world. It wasn't just a farewell to a character. It was the farewell to an era. The camera lingered on the faces, Mary trying to stay strong, Edith holding back tears, Tom nodding in quiet agreement. The children didn't fully understand, but even they sensed the weight of the moment. Violet took Mary's hand and squeezed it gently. She had passed on more than a title. She had passed on a legacy. As the family walked Violet out to the garden one last time, the sun began to set. The sky turned soft with pinks and golds. They didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. The music rose gently, strings wrapping around every step, every breath. The camera pulled back slowly, showing the family as tiny figures beneath the massive beauty of Downton Abbey. Then came the final shot, the house itself, standing tall and proud, yet changed. The light faded, and the screen went dark. That was the ending scene. Simple, elegant, devastating. A farewell that didn't need explosions or drama, just honesty, history, and heart. Fans were left in silence, staring at the credits. Not quite ready to let go. Asterisk, it wasn't just the ending, it was how it ended that broke people. Downton Abbey had always been a story of change, class, and legacy. But in this final scene, something deeper happened. It reminded fans of real life, of growing older, of watching the people we love slowly leave. Violet Crawley had been the soul of Downton, her sharp wit, her fierce pride, her endless loyalty to family. And seeing her sit quietly, looking out at the garden one last time, was like watching a whole generation say goodbye. The emotion didn't come from what was said. It came from what wasn't. There were no screams or dramatic sobs. Just quiet, shared pain. That's why it felt real. It reminded people of saying goodbye to a grandparent, of letting go when you're not ready, of remembering what someone gave you more than what they left behind. Lady Mary's silence in those final moments said everything. She had finally grown into the role Violet once held, elegant, strong, unshakable on the outside, but aching on the inside. When she held Violet's hand, fans saw the past and the future touch. It wasn't just the end of a movie. It was a mirror for everyone who had ever had to let go, for those who followed Downton from the start. This scene marked the end of an emotional journey. From the sinking of the Titanic to the roaring 1920s, fans had walked alongside these characters for over a decade. Every wedding, every death, every scandal had built up to this moment. It was a love letter to those who stayed, and a gentle farewell to those who couldn't. Social media lit up with heartbreak. Fans wrote that they cried without understanding why. Others said they watched it twice just to say goodbye again. Some called it the most beautiful farewell in modern drama. It wasn't flashy. It was human. The music soft piano under swelling. Strings added to the emotional storm. It wasn't just background noise. It was like hearing a memory. Composer John Lunn had always known how to make Downton feel alive, but in this scene he made it feel eternal. The notes didn't end when the credits rolled, they echoed in viewers' hearts. Even the setting played a part. The garden, once filled with life and laughter, now stood quiet. Flowers in full bloom, yet somehow sad. The light falling across the Downton estate seemed to say what no character could. Thank you for being here. Now it's time to go. This wasn't the kind of ending that begged for a sequel. It was the kind that left you with a full heart and misty eyes. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful stories don't end with a bang but with a breath. Even as the screen faded to black, the story didn't truly end, not for the fans who had lived with these characters for years. In fact, for many, it was just the beginning of new theories, quiet hopes, and dreams of what could come next. Because while Downton Abbey 3 gave a powerful farewell, it also left gentle hints, open doors that invited the audience to imagine more. One of the biggest theories surrounds Lady Mary. The camera spent more time on her than any other character in the final act. Her stillness, her long glances out the window, her strength. It felt like more than a goodbye, it felt like a passing of the torch. Some fans believe Mary is set to take full charge of Downton in a future series. Not just as caretaker of the estate, but as a symbol of a new era, modern, firm, and quietly emotional. A spin-off centered on her leadership during the post-war years is already being whispered about online. Then there's Tom Branson. His new love story, his evolving role in the family, and his gentle shift from outsider to true heir of the Crawley legacy have left fans wondering, could there be a show focused on his journey? Perhaps one that explores the merging of old aristocracy with the new working class. The way he bridges two worlds has always been powerful, and the film left plenty of space for more. Edith 2 sparked curiosity. Her life as a successful publisher, a modern woman, a mother, and a noble, there's more to explore. Fans have begun discussing a possible series that focuses on her life in London, balancing the pressures of society, career, and motherhood. A woman ahead of her time, Edith's path could open an entirely fresh lens on post-Edwardian England, but perhaps the most emotional theory is tied to the next generation. As the camera swept across the children playing in the garden during the last moments, fans noticed the symbolism: new life, new stories, the cycle continues. What if the next Downton chapter follows these young Crawleys as they grow into adulthood, facing a rapidly changing world, perhaps even the lead-up to World War II? The emotional weight of legacy, love, and duty could be passed to them, giving fans a new cast to love. With familiar echoes of the past, some viewers have even speculated about a prequel following a young Violet Crawley during her own rise in society. Her mysterious past, hinted at across the series, could finally come to life. Who was she before she became the Dowager Countess? What sacrifices did she make? What power did she quietly hold? It's a story many would rush to see, and of course, not all fans want anything more. For them, this ending was perfect, complete, a masterpiece of closure. Yet still, the dream remains. If the right story comes, if the emotion is true, and if the heart of Downton is honored, then maybe, just maybe, the doors of that great house will open again. Until then, we carry the story in our hearts.